Hello, Pursuit of Relentless podcast. I am so excited to be here today with Leigh Burgess, and I have been trying to get in front of Leigh for a long time. She has been so patient with me through my super fun adventure through fertility and having to reschedule multiple times. So today is going to be a big day. I am so grateful for her patience and
Oh, goodness.
belief in the show and just everything that you've done to become the person you are today. I'm really grateful that you're here.
Thank you very much. You're the bold one doing what you're doing. So definitely excited to have the conversation today and share our bold journeys together.
Awesome. I know that you have been featured in Success Magazine. I love that you were a part of Jasmine Star's Mastermind because Jasmine's been on my list of people that I want to get in front of. She's one of my
Mhm.
bucket list guests that I'm like, I got to talk to her because she was on Ed Milet's show, and Ed Milet
Yep.
is one of my business coaches. And so I was
Nice.
like, man, I want to get in front of her so badly. And I used her social curator program for a long time when I was first starting to learn social media. She helped me learn like the framework of how to run my own personal brand and stuff like that. So when I saw you were working with her, I was like, I've got to bring it up because I love Jasmine. Just
Yeah.
shout out to her.
Yeah. We're all fangirls of her. So yeah, no problem with that.
Right. Yeah, awesome. Well, I would love to hear your story and share it with everybody and just what got you to be where you are today, what made you start your business, and a little bit of your background through entrepreneurship.
Sure. Yeah. So obviously had a long life so far and continue to live it and learn every day, kind of a work in progress. But I think a big point in my career was in 2020 when I had been in healthcare the majority of my career at that time at large academic institutions in chief and senior leadership roles, running large groups in operations and administration, which I absolutely love. I'm an ops person through and through. But I got to a point in 2020 where I was just completely burnout. It was a gnarly year for the world, but I think
Mhm.
in healthcare, I think things ratcheted up in the sense of what we were doing. Obviously, I was in a group that could make a difference, which was always so important for me in clinical research. We were one of the first that actually had a study called remdesivir, which actually was the first thing that we could use to help people who actually had COVID. There was no that point even a vaccine. So a lot of responsibility. And I think for me, it just got to a place where I ignored a lot of the signs of burnout coming on and just tried to do what always worked, which was work longer, harder, faster, take more responsibility. And I just couldn't anymore. So every level of my health was pretty much decimated. And I chose to choose myself, which felt extremely selfish, extremely risky. And I was full of lots of emotions, including fear. But I needed to choose me. And with the support of my family, made a decision to quit my job without having a plan in the middle of 2020, which wasn't most optimal. But what was so interesting for me is when I gave notice and when I knew I was working towards whatever was next, I had this feeling of freedom. So, like, freedom and fear were like partners and working at the same time in my head, but I was moving forward. And that's when I created our company, Bold Industries Group, and was able to begin to think in different ways, be creative, figure out what I wanted to do next. And that's really how the bold framework that I created was born because I'm usually a very planful person, always have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. And this was me taking this, what I called a big swing of bold, and going out and going to try it to be an entrepreneur, which I'd never thought of before. I had never thought it was possible. I'd always been raised of like, that's something that you don't do because it's risky and there's a lot of things around it. My parents are a different generation, but like have insurance, have a 401k, have this corporate connection, which those are positive, but you can also have those as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was an eye-opening experience of actually really jumping into something that was completely foreign to me, unknown. But the one thing I had, which was the pinnacle thing for me being successful in launching, was belief in myself that I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So that's how it started out. And we're 4 years in and doing incredible things and consulting and events. We have retreats, we have networking events, we have a membership, and I wrote a book.
That's amazing. We're going to talk about your book soon, but I
Yeah,
am
kind of in that order. I thought about writing the book the first year, and I'm just so glad I didn't. So, experience and the things I've gone through, and the ups and downs, and I think it's just really nice to be able to include that in the pages. But I definitely wouldn't, it would not be a good book if I wrote it right out of the gate. It'd be a very different book for sure.
Yeah. Well, my book took me 3 years to write because I
Okay.
just kept rewriting it and rewriting it and
You do
rewriting
have
it.
that tendency. Yeah.
And I learned a lot about myself in that process, just going through it and going, hey, I didn't realize that we were very similar in the fact that I also quit my job without a plan. Like
Okay.
I had already been running my financial services business for about a year and a half, 2 years, very part time. And
Hmm.
I was a heavy equipment operator full time at the peak of my crazy chaos mode. But it was the same thing, like just getting into a place where I was not happy with where I was at. I had never been more overweight. I had never been more depressed. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? Chasing that dream of being wealthy and having financial success and stability. And everyone tells you, oh,
The
go,
next thing, right? Yeah.
yeah, go do this and you're going to love it. And I didn't. But I was like very
Yeah,
shocked.
or maybe you did at one point. Like I feel like in
Yeah,
my career, I learned so much of both of the places that I worked for the majority of my career. Obviously, but I had different jobs along the way. I mean, my first job was a lawnmower. I mowed lawns at 13. But it was interesting, I was entrepreneurial then too. So
right?
in the sense of how I operated, but in the sense of if it had steep hills or if you needed it on demand, there was a higher price. So like if you needed it in a shorter period of time. So that's a little entrepreneurial, but I didn't really identify that until recently. But I think different experiences, but you get to a point where you're like, wow, this actually at some point was good. Like I enjoyed it. It was, hitting the 8 out of 10 or the 9 out of 10 check marks of what I wanted. And then somewhere for me, it was in my 40s. And I'm thinking I started to ignore some of the burnout signs around 45. And by 48, it was just like the red light was on. And I just kept resetting it,
Yeah.
thinking, oh, there's something wrong with this dashboard.
Yeah.
And it was me. For me, I think it was just really important just to know that you can go back into corporate, you can be an entrepreneur, you can figure it out. But for me, it was just like at that point in time, the way the world was, the way that I was on all levels of my health, I too had gained all the weight I had lost several years before. I gained 67 pounds in a 3.5 year time period. And
Mhm.
I was ready to be healthy and to
Yeah.
feel mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy. There were just so many layers to it, I think, for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that people don't focus enough on feeling good. I think
Yeah.
we focus a lot, like I'm in the financial industry, so I see it all. And
Yeah.
a lot of people are just chasing that next big thing or chasing that dream that they don't think is actually possible. And
Hmm.
so I love that you said that you stepped out and took a outside view of yourself and just went, hey, am I actually building the life that I want to build? And the answer was not really. Like it does check some of the boxes, but is it checking all the boxes? No. And even when I first started in the business, I had zero belief in myself. I was like, I knew I was destined for something greater than myself. And
Hmm.
I needed to be in a service role. So being a heavy equipment operator, I was like, nope. Right.
Yeah. I didn't check that box. Yeah.
Not even a little bit. I was by myself all the time. I wasn't able to make an impact or a difference in the world. And so when I started in the financial industry and I saw the impact that I could be making, I was like, wow, okay. And then I was very personal development focused and just like going out. And you said something in your interview with Kristen Butler. You said your story can't help anyone if you keep it to yourself. And
Hmm.
that really hit me because I was like, in those moments when I was brand new starting out in my career and I didn't necessarily have that belief in myself, but I had the belief in my company and what we were doing and how we were helping people, it was one of those moments where when you share your story, then you're able to create that impact without even really thinking about it. Because it's like, if I can do it, you can do it, right?
Yeah. And I think your story is yours, right? And what I did, I would not recommend, right? There's lots of things I would go back and change. Don't ignore the sign. I
Yeah.
had multiple signs of this is what's happening. We didn't talk about burnout as much as we have since 2020. I
Mhm.
think there was a positive side to what we started having dialogue about in 2020. I think with regard to how we worked, the way we worked, where we worked, all of that. But I think for me, I just want people to realize that being bold is your journey. It is your definition and it's all personal. But of all the different definitions that I've collected on my podcast, which is one of the first questions I ask every guest, the similarity and the consistency between the definitions is that it is a choice. It is your choice. You choose to be bold. I can't make you bold. You can't make me bold. I can't command you to be bold. I can't direct you to be bold. These are things that you really will do for yourself. And you'll have that bold moment, that bold move that you want to make in the time that you want to make it. But the key for me is just for people to understand that it doesn't have to be big and loud like mine was. It can be very quiet. And some of my boldest moments, honestly, if you think about belief in yourself, owning what you should own, learning from your successes and your setbacks, and keeping that growth mindset, and really figuring out that you're the architect of how you design your life forward.
Mhm.
Those are quiet, bold moments. Those aren't ones that are on social media. Those aren't ones you hear a lot about, but those are just as bold as any other big, bold move that you see or hear. So it's definitely a continuum of what you can do to be bold.
You also said not everyone is going to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Big
And
time.
that hit me really hard because in my career, everyone was like, oh, Alaina, you'll be back, you'll miss the money, or you're not going to be able to be successful with that. Like, you don't have a background in finance. And I'm actually a red seal pastry chef by trade. So people are like, oh, you're a baker. And I'm like, what?
You're like, you have all these cool things going on. Like you could do large machinery, you could make a cake, and you could help my finances. Like, I'm
Right?
really liking this.
Well, I hate being stagnant. I love
Yeah.
to grow. I love to learn. I love to encourage people to do the same. And part of my job in the finance industry is helping people dream again, just like getting them past that point where they've put those limitations on themselves. And
Mhm.
for myself, when I went full time in my business, I was a broke associate, like just trying. I think I maybe had like 15 or 20 clientele at the time. And I was like, I'm doing this, because at a point where I couldn't visualize myself continuing the way I was going. Like you were saying in your career, it's just that moment when you make the decision, like, hey, I need to do something different because I know I was put on this earth for something bigger. Even though I am doing well in the career I'm in and I am making a difference and I am progressing in my career, but making that bold statement and going, hey, I'm going to take care of me
Yeah.
is so important. Even when there's those naysayers, there's those people that are like, oh, but you're just this person. Well, I am that person, but I can also be this different version of myself that I've never even met yet.
Well, we're evolving, right? If we're not evolving, then I think we're not living. So I think not everybody evolves, is what I learned when I became an entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is many people didn't understand what I was doing. At first, it really hurt my feelings, honestly, because I think I'm naive at times of how good the world can be and how happy people should be for one another. And maybe I don't understand what you're doing, but you look really freaking happy and you go, girl. Like, that's what I would do. I just wouldn't be like, well, I don't really get it. Why
Mhm.
are you doing that? How could you leave there? What do you mean you're not doing this full time? What do you mean you're not working at all this month and you're just trying to figure out your health? Because I did that. And because it was just in really bad shape. It wasn't like I could just jump back into work. And so that hurt my feelings, honestly, at the start because I found out for me who truly was for me and maybe who truly was only connected to me through a whatever we were challenged by, or maybe how we felt about something at work or a particular thing that we did together. But once we didn't have that in common, we didn't have anything in common. And
Mhm.
I think that was a little disappointing at first, but then I realized keep that circle really small when you first start off. Don't tell everybody and the person to check out at Target your dreams. Because I was like, and I want to do this, and I've thought about that, and this is what I'm excited about. And they'd be like, what? Because one of them was like, be an interior designer. One of them was, I would really love to have a barbecue line that uses beers and local cideries to create these barbecue flavors that are named after songs. So that was one of the businesses I want to do. And people were like, what? And I still think that's a really good idea, but it's on the
Yeah.
list, but it's not what I'm working on right now. So I just
Right?
think in the sense of I just took like all the things that I really like to do, which was like being outside, listening to music, being at the outside grilling, just that outside scene, being in spaces that feel good and helping people see possibility. that's really what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be serving others because I really felt that's why we're here.
Hmm.
And so those all were just, I was just trying to figure it out. But I was like telling everyone my ideas, and definitely I got some faces and some looks, and some other people were like, I don't understand, but let's just, I'm here for the ride. Let's see where this goes. So I think as you're thinking about a bold move, you don't always have to tell somebody else about it. You might want to, for just in the sense of guidance, or what do you think, or do you see this too? But just realize again that it's ultimately your step that you take. That is the part that's all on you, is to take the first step. And that's all you have to take. You don't have to take 50 or a giant leap. It's one step. And that one step could be writing the plan down. The one step could be picking a date on a calendar and circling it. Like, I want to be healthy by, switch jobs by, look at my relationship status. Like, you can pick whatever it is. And just putting that date down starts things in motion.
Hmm.
So I think that's important to realize too. It's builds on your timeline, not
Yeah.
anybody else's.
Speaking of dates, November 19th, can you talk to us about that day?
Whew, yeah, it's coming on fast. I've been waiting for it, and now I just want the clock to slow down a little bit because I feel like I'm so behind. But that's probably very typical. I have a book coming out, Be Bold Today, which is all about the framework, and I walk through each section of the framework: believe, own, learn, design, with activities and resources and a quiz or two in there, just to help people understand that they can take the first steps and they don't need to do anything other than follow the steps at their pace and rate within the book. And it's just a way for people, hopefully, to see how to start moving the needle on what they want to do, to live their best life possible, to know that you're able to do things at any age. I think one of the myths of being bold is that it's too late to be bold, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was 48, had multiple master's degrees, same industry. I had achieved this C-suite success. There are a few things I had not done yet, obviously, be on a board, and there were still some things I needed to check off to go to the next level. Finishing my doctorate degree, check, check. So there were a few things that I was still there, needed to do in that space. But I think what I realized is what I thought success was maybe earlier on in my life was not success at that time. It just didn't feel like it. It felt very misaligned. It felt way harder than it needed to be. I think I used to think that running into a wall a bunch of times was like, just, okay, get tougher, figure it out, go back. Don't give up. But I think I realized at 48 that actually, when it's becoming so hard and you're trying to make something work that just isn't working, maybe it is time to change paths, change a direction, pause even, instead of just continually going back and running into the wall, which is what I would say I was doing at the end, whether it was a challenge or something we were doing or the pandemic. It was just everything felt hard.
Hmm.
And I also felt like at that point, and you talked about, I would get to a certain milestone in my career and I'd be like, okay, what's the next one? Where's the next mountain to climb? And let me get at it today because I don't want to waste any time. Life is short. Let's go. And for me, I think also it was very exhausting to be in that constant cycle of what's next and moving the goalposts, so to speak, for myself and my career. So success was redefined for me at that point in time, because success at that point was health
Yes.
and relationships and being joyful and happy, which is really the person I am, which I had not, I was so far from that at that
Mhm.
point. And I just wanted to feel and be me again. And I really just felt like I wasn't. I don't know if you felt that too, but I just felt like I wasn't even me.
Yeah. There was the conversation that I had and with my friend Michaela, and she has known me for years and years and years. And she was like, Alaina, I never thought I would see you slow down. And I was like, whoa. In that moment, I realized that I had lost track of who I was as a person because I
Mhm.
was so in my business, like in it, like trying to find clients, recruiting, building, you know,
All the things. Yeah. Yeah.
being an entrepreneur, running a company, like learning how to be an entrepreneur when I didn't have a background in that. But I also sold spices when I was like 7 years old. So
Oh, maybe we can
funny,
get that barbecue company.
right? Oh, it was so funny. But like you don't necessarily understand what is important to you until you sit down and look at it. And it was
Yeah.
that moment when I was sitting with Michaela that she was like, I never thought I'd see you slow down. But I was like, I had no choice.
Mm.
I had to slow down because I was at the point of burnout as well. And I didn't realize what that looked like until I was like, I cannot go to work today for like 2 months. And it took me having my first miscarriage to sit back and analyze what mattered to me.
Mm.
And the fact that I couldn't necessarily control everything and I couldn't predict the future like I thought it was going to be this incredible journey through motherhood. And then boom, reality check. That
Mm.
didn't happen. Right. And so I was
Yeah.
just like, redefining success. I read a book actually called that, Redefining Success by Brett Wilson. And he was talking about how he was this big successful guy. He was on like Shark Tank or something like that. And then he got prostate cancer, stage
Mm.
4. And it was in those moments when he realized he had lost everything that he ever wanted in his life because of his work. And he had to redefine success and look at what success meant to him. And so I did this exercise with myself and just went through and was like, okay, if I'm sitting here looking at these things that
Mm-hmm.
fill my jar, right? Love,
Mm-hmm.
health, connection, my relationships, my creativity, my dog. I'm looking at those things sitting in front of me and going, these are the main pillars of success in my life. This is what
Yeah.
means most to me.
They're
And
your
so,
values, right? They're your values. Are you living in alignment with your values? Is a question I ask people when we're trying to work through the framework. And then they're like, well, I don't even know what my values are. Well, let's start there. You probably do, but you haven't done that exercise in a while, right? So my values were some of the same ones in your jar, but I was so out of alignment, right? I
right.
was. And I
No,
knew
me
like,
too.
yeah, and so success, although outside looking in, wow, look at her, C-suite, 6 figures, lots of people on her team, just incredible opportunity, great organizations, but unhappy, hardly having any relationship because I was working 17 hours a day,
Right.
very irritable, not myself, reactive, defensive. Like these are all things I would say I was, but I just want the world to know like that wasn't me. But I
Yeah.
don't think anyone actually said, Haley, I think you're burnt out. Haley, I think you're doing too much. Haley, I'm really worried about you, and except my family, my closest to me, because I don't know if organizations are generally set up like that, or if even people feel comfortable doing something like that in the professional setting. But I'm not sure even if they did, I would have listened because I would have been like, oh, you don't think I'm good enough? You don't think I can work hard enough? Like, let me show you. I'm going to work 19 hours. So it was this really wacky way that my mind was working on what success was when I was in that groove of what's next, how do I work harder, how do I show my worth. And I think I've also learned about myself that I have 3 things that I work on. And I knew the one, which was I'm not enough. I always felt like I needed to work harder, do more, show more, be the one that makes everybody proud. And I've been in that mode for my entire life since the loss of my brother when I was 6. And I've just figured out this year that I was doing that because I was trying to fill the space. So my parents never worried. My parents never were sad. My parents were always happy, like do everything possible to like make it good, get the 5 stars, get the blue ribbon at the race or whatever it was. Like I wanted to do it, but I just thought that was drive. I thought that was me going for it. But now that I look back at it, I was like, where did that come from at 6, 7, 8? And I pulled that in right to my career. I have this people pleasing tendency, which I used to think was a really bad word. Like, I'm not a people pleaser, but I really had this thing of making everybody happy at the inconvenience of me, my life, my health, whatever it was. And the other one now as an entrepreneur, which I did not experience in the corporate world ever, because I used to hear about it and be like, I never felt that, is imposter syndrome. But I definitely feel it with entrepreneurs when I'm sitting in a room with successful women who've been in business 32 years, and here I am at 4 years, and I'm like, why am I even in this room? Who am I? And so I think those are things that I've learned about myself too, as I've become an entrepreneur and kind of stepped into this unknown world that we're really figuring out at times on the fly when it happens. But I love that I know who's in charge. It's me. And so I think if we need to change something or I need to reflect or look back, like I know who to go to. And I also very blessed that my daughter is the co-founder of the company. So we've been working together since day one. And she was 23 when we started the company. So I think in that sense, that's also been just such a gift of my experience as an entrepreneur so far.
I love that. Yeah, working with your family can be such a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And in more than one way, it's not like, oh, it's just all amazing all the time, but it's such a learning experience and an opportunity to grow those relationships as well.
Yeah, it matures them, right? Like how you communicate, when you communicate. The hard part for me is like turning it off. Sometimes we'll be like, I don't want to talk about work, boss. Okay, well, like that, thinking about it right now, let me write it down. So there's those moments. And for me, just being very intentional about when it gets out of alignment, because I don't use balance, because I think balance is shorter than alignment. I feel like alignment can last a little longer, but also as indicators when it's not in alignment. So for me, it's just, again, going back to your values, it's a constant kind of making sure I'm paying attention to them, where somewhere along the way, when I was in the other roles, they were there, but they weren't in so much as in the forefront of my world as they are now. And that might
Mhm.
be part of just getting older, or it might just be me being more focused on what's important, which might be associated too with getting older.
Well, what I did was I incorporated it into my calendar,
Hmm.
like family dinners on Sundays,
Yep.
like in the calendar, phone is down, I am
Right.
present in that moment because family and relationships is at the top of my priorities list. But then I look at my health and it's, I want to be healthy. My affirmations are happy, healthy, wealthy, free. And so
Nice.
when I look at those four words, am I happy? Am I healthy? Am I wealthy? Am I free?
Mhm.
And entrepreneurship gives me all of those things. And
Mhm.
I used to think that I had to do, like you were talking about, and continue to push myself and go hard and not take that time for myself in order to be successful. What I learned is because I built a good base in a business, I was able to take those steps back and take care of myself. And literally, my business grew.
Mhm.
And I was like, how? I don't understand how that was actually a thing. But it was so beautiful in watching my team develop and watching my team get out there and take charge for themselves because they couldn't have that phone call with me every 5 minutes. And it just helped them grow so much. And I'm super grateful for that, anyways.
Well,
But
you also stood in your value, which I think is something
I,
for people to hear sooner than later in their lives is I think for me, I always knew I was good at my job. I was good at my job till the day I left in the corporate setting. I still am good at that job if I'd want to go back. But I think for me, I'm not sure I stood in my value as much as I could. I certainly stood up for myself, advocated for myself. But I think more and more, even now as an entrepreneur, and you said you step back and therefore your business grew because other people could stand in their value, show their skills, show their expertise. You were saying, I am actually not needed here. I'm needed over here more so in strategy
Mhm.
or creation or creativity. So you actually saying, here's what I'm good at, and I'm going to stand in that. And also, I think people see how you treat yourself
Yes,
and how we invite other people to treat us.
yeah.
And so we've heard this, I'm sure, 1,000 times over, but I think just for the listeners to like, are you standing in your value? And when I say that, I don't just mean professionally, I mean personally and professionally, because you're a 360-degree human being. It isn't just one or the other.
Mhm.
And so I think it's really important to do that. And you're an example of like when you did that, things actually got better, things felt decompressed for you, and you
Mhm.
felt aligned to your values. And you're like, how is that possible? I did work harder and add hours and do all that. But it's interesting just to see when we pause and sit back, and this is incredible that I even say it. But for me, it's not always chasing something anymore, chasing the next review, chasing the next level of a rung in a setting, chasing a salary, chasing honestly respect or people seeing I'm an expert or whatever. Like you already are.
Mhm.
Like no one else has to tell you that, but you have to believe it, right? So that's just some knowledge that I gained over the last 4 years. If I was seeking this external type of thing that we get trained for, honestly, as we go through school and we go through different roles that we have of what is the next thing
Mhm.
becomes like how you're seen to be your value, your expertise, your respect level, those types of things. And I think that starts with you
Yeah.
first. Check yourself on the sense of how you're valuing yourself, your time, who you're spending time around, and allowing to be that circle. And what is it? The sum of the five people around you really is what you're doing and who you become and who you're becoming. So do that check of your bold posse right now. Are they the right people for you to get to the next level and to grow and evolve as a person?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I ask myself the question, what dream am I selling? What dream am I selling? And because I was like doing this training on selling the dream and just like reading a book called Selling the Dream. And I was just like looking at myself going, is this the life that people are going to be excited about? And the answer was, heck no. Oh, you have to go and work 14 hours a day and have absolutely no life and not take care of yourself in order to be successful. Sound good? Let's do it.
Sign up today.
Yeah, right. So let's reevaluate this, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at just having that belief in yourself, which is the being bold, and just looking at, okay, I know that I believe that I can do good things in this world, regardless of how many hours a day I need to put in. What dream am I selling? So when I was able to step back in my business and take the time for myself to take care of my health and really spend time with my family, I literally moved 1,700 kilometers away from where I was in order
Yeah.
to be closer to my family because I was like, I value family, and that is not showing.
Hmm.
Right? How often have I missed my niece and nephew's birthday parties? Guess what? Never again. Because
Hmm.
I'm making those decisions for myself now where I'm standing up for what I know is important to me. And
Yeah.
I love putting yourself out there and not being afraid of what people are going to say about you or say behind your back in
It
those.
all happens. Yeah. It's amazing. And
You
as
can't
you get
stop
more
it.
successful in that space too, people think it's easy. They think being bold is easy and does not equal. They think that everything's always positive and that there's not moments of doubt or for me like a lower confidence level in something or is it going to work? Like those things happen regularly, but you made the choice. And I think that's the piece where you'll always have people that don't understand you. You'll have people who are jealous of you too, which is really weird for me to think that someone being happy and successful makes someone else jealous, but it most likely, I think, irritates potentially something in them that they wish they were doing or could do, or maybe have planned but have never made the first step. I've learned to really say that's not about me, that's about them.
Mhm.
And I think these are things you do get stronger through these trials that you have as an entrepreneur. Like you said, it's not all butterflies and rainbows every day. And you have low moments like I do. Like I have low moments. I've never thought, should I really be doing this? I've certainly thought that wasn't a good idea. Or like, I shouldn't have given that away like I did when it was something to be valued and now maybe people don't value it as much or something like
Right.
that. But I think these are moments of learning for us. But being bold does not mean it's easy. It means you're making a choice and it's going to have a cost of something, whether it's monetary, time, resources, relationships. You've made that choice, which the upside, the ROI of your choice is much higher than any loss or change that you have to make.
Mhm. I love that. Wow. I'm so excited for people to get your book and just work through this stuff. I would love it if you would share maybe one or two of the pieces of the framework where people can actually start and take the tangible steps to get to a point where they are taking that initiative for themselves and feeling like they're comfortable taking that bold step forward, whether it's in private or
Yeah.
public.
Yeah. I think one of the, so believe, own, learn, design, you'll work through the entire framework. I spend a lot of time on the front end in the B because I think without that, we can't do anything else. We can't own the ups and downs, the setbacks, all those things. We can't learn from anything. And we certainly don't feel like we can design it if we don't believe we can. Or we have beliefs maybe that are in the shadows that we don't even know about, right?
Mhm.
So that's where my perfectionism, like I learned that was in my shadow. And I worked on that too. So I don't really see that as a forefront thing for me. But one thing that someone can do just very quickly, and we go in depth to it in the actual book, is just do a quick belief audit and write down, make a T chart. And in one column is your beliefs or your I am statement about yourself. What would you say about yourself? And then the other one is it true or is it false? Is it logically really actually true? So you could say, I am not successful, or I am trying hard. I am working on my health. I am a good mom. I value your I statements. And then the next one was like, do you really? Is that accurate? And then if it's a yes, okay, and it's a positive, like how do you amplify? How do you continue to work on that? And what's an action step, right? What can you see that's going to amplify I am healthy? Well, I see myself walk 5,000 steps a day. I see myself take a walk around the block. Both are bold moves depending on how much you're moving. So don't compare it like I've got to have 10,000 steps or my phone says 145 steps today. So like, okay, I got to work on that. Is rounding down. You
Like
know,
I'm at 715.
yeah, okay, well, you're 6x me. So I think from that perspective, think about what looks like success for that particular I am statement. If
Hmm.
it's a false statement, how do you reframe it? So I'm fat. That's a terrible thing to say about yourself. Plus, I think you invite that in when you say it.
Hmm.
So I think instead of saying that, like I'm working on being healthy
Yeah,
versus that particular negative thing you could say to yourself. Because we talk to ourselves really awfully
really
sometimes.
bad.
I
Yeah.
know, like I would be embarrassed, I think, if I wrote down what I say to myself. There was a while, like in the middle of all this, where I was like, I couldn't even look in the mirror. Like I didn't want to see me because I was like, who is that?
Yeah.
Like I had gained so much weight. I felt so unhealthy. I felt just a ball of not me. And there was this little while I was very quickly look in the mirror. And for me, that should have been like a really big indicator something needs to change. But now it's like, okay, I'm going to look in the mirror a little longer. And, I feel like I can see myself. And that sounds so silly potentially, but I don't mean just in the mirror. I just mean in the world, in how I move in the world, in my actions, in my words. Like I see me now. And
Yeah.
I didn't see myself before. I couldn't even look at myself, honestly. So I think just those are types of things, just a real quick belief audit. Spend some time, like give yourself a timer, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Cause I thought I can't write for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And I recently just did that in the mastermind. And it was so interesting. Like I came home and actually shared my journal with my family because one, I think I'm not a journaler, but I think I might be just a closet journal at this point because I think I was able to do some of the things she asked us to do. And it was really just it was free writing for 20 minutes and then it was talking about your wins for 20 minutes. So imagine writing for 40 minutes and you're not writing a book or an assignment or a brief or and I was like, deep breath, can I do this? And what I ended up doing was writing, I think it was 11 pages of I am statements. And
Mm.
it was just interesting for me to see what I say about myself now and going back to some of the ones I would say before. And
Hmm.
I just think that might be insight into where you may want to start with your beliefs. So I think for me, I am enough. Do you believe it? Like,
Hmm.
if you don't believe it, how are you working on it? Right. So for me, I'm getting much better at that one. And so
Hmm.
I think that's just something for someone to work through. And then we go into ownership, which my biggest issue was not owning the good things. I never owned a win. I never owned like what was going right or how I conquered something that was like just not able to be done before. That was good, check mark. I expect that of me. Like, let's move on. And I think what I over owned were all the things that weren't going right, that were going left or wrong, or were actually someone else's responsibility. So I think that's something that we dig into of what are you owning and what are you not owning that you should, and then what are you owning that you shouldn't be yours in the first place, right?
Yeah.
A silly one like right now, like just to give you an example of ownership thing is I used to be super scared of going into tunnels, like claustrophobic a little bit. I don't like being underwater. What's that all about? And nothing happened to me. Like it was just this fear I had that had no sense of where it came from, except my mom was afraid of tunnels. So I grew up with like conversations. Where's the tunnel coming up, Steve? My dad, like, where is it? How long is it? Is it underwater? Like all these things I remember as a kid. So I became like this intense moment about tunnels where it was like not normal. I would go way around things just to not go through a tunnel. And then when you move to New England and you try to go through Boston, you better get used to tunnels or New York. So I think it was like, why is that? And then very quickly, like I was like, that's actually not my fear. That's my mom's fear, right? So I'm owning a fear example that's not even mine. So maybe you have some example like that too of Maybe there's a fear of trying a different role, or maybe it's a fear of not being accepted, or a fear of not graduating, or whatever. But is it yours even? I think just
Right.
doing some checks on the ownership of just even our own fears or things we think we might not be good at, if it's even ours in the first place. And that tunnel one just was like such a thing. I was just like, wow, all those years I owned that and I didn't need to. But your backpack gets lighter, right? Just like when you lose weight, you feel like you can do things that you never did before and run faster, and you just feel lighter, literally. I think when you get rid of some of these things that you don't own and you get more of a understanding of your own beliefs, that really catapults you into the learning and designing phase of your life.
My friend Jen LeClaire was teaching a class on a similar topic, and she said, you can have all these affirmations that you want, but if you don't put a meaning to them, it's not
Hmm.
going to mean anything to you. So
Hmm.
saying I am enough, it's like, it's in your brain.
Yeah.
But if I
Yeah.
say I am enough because, and then
Hmm.
coming up with something, so I am healthy because I focus on my diet or I exercise daily or whatever it is, it just really ties it back to that vision of what you're creating in your life, which I think is so important for us to own. And having those I am, so I have these angel cards, and I
Hmm.
pulled a card after I lost my son, and it was like, I am indestructible. And I was just like
Did
bawling
you like, I was like, did you just fall to the ground and start crying? Yeah.
still
Yeah.
almost a year later. And I'm just like, oh man, that moment, it was a grizzly bear and it said, grizzly bear power. I am indestructible. I trust my instinct. And pretty much I continue to go through everything with grace for myself. And it was just in that moment that I was like, I can do anything I set my mind to because I'm just like in this journey that I'm out of control of, but at the same time, I'm choosing to pursue greatness. I'm choosing to push myself forward. And now I'm actually writing my second book. It's called Navigate Through the Darkness. And it's all about like overcoming grief when it comes to losing a child or doing something good with my pain. And I'm going to donate it to midwifery clinics and people who are struggling with the same thing I'm struggling with. Because in my head, if I'm able to find something good that I can do to contribute and use this lesson that I've learned through finding my own peace and bringing joy back to myself through little things like affirmations and music, like you were talking about, and going through walks in the forest with my dog and like just finding things that bring me joy that I wasn't allowing myself to have previously because I was so caught up in the work and doing.
Hmm.
It really changed my perspective on life. And
Yeah, I think these are all things that people can do. You don't need a 50K mastermind to go take a walk in the woods with your dog.
right.
Like, you need a pen and a piece of paper to write your I am statements and your second column of yes, it's true, or no, it's not, or because, right? So these are things that you can do right now. But
Mhm.
the first thing you have to do is notice that you want or need to make a change, that something's got to give, that you're curious about. Like, I think these are all kind of things that come up for people. Like, I'm wondering if I could do that. I don't think I can do this anymore. I've heard this a lot lately, but this is just a lot. It's just a lot. I was like, well, what is a lot?
Right.
That's right. So let's talk about what's in that bucket or that basket that's called a lot. And like, can we take some stuff out of it? Can we kick some things over to the curb? Can we throw some things away? But I mean, you're talking about some of the deepest loss as a mom, as a woman that you could ever experience.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you have been able to say, I'm going to turn this into something that helps others, that gives people hope, that they can see, yes, you can go forward. It doesn't mean you forget or you lose or you lose sight of or just don't feel it anymore. It just means you're choosing to move forward. And
Mhm.
so I think those type of losses, like, people may never understand, and I hope they never can relate to you that
Yeah.
way, right? So I can actually relate to you. So I think from the perspectives of that, just be kind. I think that's what people can learn from you, your experiences, and me and my experiences. You never know what someone's going through, what they've been through, or what
Mhm.
they're doing right now. And the base of everything and every action and every word should just be kindness.
Mhm.
And that always, I think, can create an opportunity for whether it's dialogue or even listening or having an opportunity like you have to inspire others, to give other people hope. For me, hopefully for people to see the possibility of what they can do when they just make the first step boldly forward. And I think that's really something incredible and a gift that you have. And others may not be able, I think, to be able to give their gifts readily, but I think you have an opportunity to do that when you choose those moments to say, I'm going to move forward, but I'm going to help others learn or see, or maybe even know how to go through something like that.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, that is a perfect place to finish up for the day, is just being kind to one another and really focusing on doing what's best for the world and what's best for ourselves, and honoring what truly matters to us and being bold in those moments that we need to be bold in, but also in private, and just going into what we're capable of doing in our own self and growing and developing and pursuing. That's why I call it the pursuit of relentless. And I never believe that the pursuit will end. I think it just changes. And
Mhm.
that next version of ourselves, we've never even met yet. So get excited and be pumped for what's coming next, because you're 4 years into your business. Imagine what that 10-year version of yourself looks like.
Yeah, it's incredible. I never could have imagined where I am now. So
Mhm.
many things I'm even doing, I never had on my list or had on a vision board or anything like that. So it is definitely something for people to see, that even maybe you aren't thinking big enough about your life because you have some beliefs or you haven't made that first step that needs to be taken for you to see the bigness of the possibility before
Mhm.
you.
Beautiful. Well, guys, I'm going to put the link to pre-order her book in the show notes as well. It will be launching on November 19th, so make sure you get your copy of Be Bold today. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you for listening to my crazy babble and just helping us learn how to be more bold in our own journeys. I'm excited to get that book and really dig into what the next version of me looks like. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's it for today. Make sure that you follow Leigh and get a copy of her book and listen to The Bold Lounge. So, yeah, her podcast is awesome. I got a ton of value out of listening the last couple of days to her show, and just being able to really dig into what matters to us and taking care of ourselves. And I know everyone got a ton of value out of that. So, if you did get value out of it, make sure that you share the show. We are a holistically grown podcast, and I will make sure to share as much value as possible through these guests that I get access to. So thank you for listening, and share the show. On that note, that's Pursuit of Relentless signing out.